Okay, episode 3. Well, the real point of what I was trying to say yesterday is that everyone has to have faith in something. And so when you start getting into questions like the existence of God, in order for the discussion to be at all productive, both sides have to recognize that everybody puts faith in something, and then the discussion would need to be about what specifically to put faith in. Now, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the fundamental laws of thought, which are the foundation of what we laughingly call logical reasoning. The fundamental laws of thought are about things we call propositions. A proposition could also be called a statement or a sentence, an idea. There are more technical epistemologies that make distinctions between these different things, but for our purposes, I'll just say proposition, and you could fill in any one of those other words if they help you more. But I'm going to talk about propositions. A proposition would be something like, the sky is blue. That's a proposition. And another proposition would be, the moon is made of green cheese. So you see, propositions can be true or false. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here are the 3 fundamental laws of thought, the rules that govern all propositions. First, we have the law of non-contradiction, which states that no 2 mutually contradictory propositions can both be true. So if A contradicts B, A and B being propositions, so if proposition A contradicts proposition B, then A might be true, or B might be true, or A and B might both be false, but A and B cannot both be true if they are mutually contradictory. So your ideas cannot contain contradictions if they are going to be logical. And by the way, I might mention in passing that the word logical is commonly a word that gets very abused in our culture, and I blame that largely on Leonard Nimoy, who played Mr. Spock in the 1960s Star Trek original series. Basically, in Star Trek, logical means that you agree with Mr. Spock, and illogical means that you disagree with Mr. Spock. And I'm here to tell you that is not what logical and illogical really mean. You can have logical statements about complete nonsense, but you can't have illogical statements about things that are true. Alright, so the first law is the law of non-contradiction. No 2 mutually contradictory propositions can both be true. The second law is the law of identity, which has been famously stated as A equals A. In other words, nothing can't not be itself, is another way to say it. 2 propositions which are equivalent have the same truth value, might be another way to say it. The law of identity says that something can't both be and not be. No, that's the third law. My bad. The law of identity is that 2 things which are the same are equal to one another. That's another way of stating the law of identity. We don't usually violate the law of identity as much as we violate the other laws, as far as I can tell. Anyway, the third fundamental law of thought is the law of the excluded middle, which says that no proposition can be both true and false, or neither true nor false. I would say that the law of the excluded middle is that every proposition is either true or false. There are no other possibilities. If it's really a proposition, it's either true or it's false. So, non-contradiction, identity, excluded middle. Now, from those three axioms, we get most of what we call deductive logic. I think another day I'm going to have to talk about deductive versus inductive logic, and that's going to be a whole other discussion that I don't have time for today. There's all kinds of directions you can go with this. I mean, logic is a pretty vast field. It has implications in every other field. I mean, logic applies literally everywhere. And in fact, when we talk about things that are entertaining nonsense like Alice in Wonderland, the only reason they are entertaining is because they're written by logicians. Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland, was a logician, someone who studies logic. And that's why Lewis Carroll was able to write such a perfectly nonsensical book. Okay, there was one other thing I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, and that is the problem of specificity. One of the problems with talking about propositions and trying to apply the fundamental laws of thought is that a lot of times you have statements that are vague. You have statements that are so vague that they sound like they could be either true or false depending on how you look at it. And basically the deal there is what you've said isn't really a proposition. You've said something that's basically meaningless, or its meaning is so broad that it just doesn't stick. In order to be able to apply logical reasoning to something, it has to be specific enough for the purposes of what you're trying to apply reason to do. You know, there's in different subjects we accept different levels of specificity. If I was going to get into an argument with someone over abortion, which is something I do fairly frequently, I have to stick to a very general level of specificity on some of the medical questions, because I'm not a medical student, I'm a computer science student. But basically, I am able to apply logic to the question. Anyone can apply logic to the question if we can get simple statements that are true and then run them through. I mean, it's not a problem. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. I guess when I do that, I really need to end an episode. Okay, I think we're getting a lot closer to being able to start talking about metaphysics. I really need to first build my epistemological framework, at least not a complete epistemological framework, but at least a simple one, a simple sort of working set, tools to make tools, like we say in computer science, and only then can I move on to subjects of metaphysics and ethics. Okay, so I think tomorrow, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to talk about tomorrow when we get there. Okay, signing off.